You're listening to Grant's Rants. Subscribe and spread the word. There are a lot more rants to come. Listen anytime on all major podcasting platforms. And now, back to the show.
And we're back on the podcast, joined once again by Ryan Bailey. It's really nice to catch up with you. I really like chatting with you. I think we've really only talked in podcasts, like recording, right? I don't think we've ever met, have we?
Yeah, no, never. I mean, it's COVID, so I haven't met any. I've been doing the podcast about a year and maybe a year and a couple months now.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I don't meet anybody anymore. So everything is over audio. But when you have a shorthand of these shows, you get to know people, I think, rather quickly and rather intimately based on their opinions of these shows. It's a shorthand language that kind of catches you up with somebody very quickly.
Yeah. How are you doing 5 shows a week? How do you how do you prevent burnout? It's a serious question.
Also I do the Patreon episodes too. So I'm doing probably eight or 9 shows a week. I've always thought it was silly to hear that, do what you love and it's not work. And I got to say that is what the situation is here, is that I found something I truly love. It does burn out in the sense of it's a daily grind. It's almost like The Deadliest Catch, that reality show where they're just crab fishing all night. And that is kind of, you're just grinding these things out. But I get to meet fascinating people. I get to talk to so many amazing people. To hear their viewpoints. I've learned about social issues. I've laughed my balls off. I mean, there are so many amazing things that the only disappointing thing is that I wish I had leaned into this earlier in my life, or that podcasting was even around earlier in my life. But I lost my actual job during COVID, and it just gave me more time to treat this as a job. I treat this as a career, and I don't think I treat everything as a laugh. I try to be as silly as possible, but I'm deadly serious about the podcast. I love it so much. I am very passionate about it. I'm passionate about the listeners. I feel like they're family and friends. I enjoy, just those things in life, Grant, where there's so many things in life where I feel like I have 2 left feet. I feel like I don't fit in. I feel like I'm a nerd or a loser. And with the podcast, it is one of the only times where I felt not cocky, but I felt confident. I felt that I've had something to say, and I feel like I have 2 good ears that really want to listen to other people. And podcasting is the perfect venue for that. And it's a champion of women's voices, of gay voices, of minority voices. There are so many amazing voices that this medium champions that other mediums don't. And I cannot say enough good things about it. And through these reality shows that we dearly love, you find that it touches on everything. Pop culture touches on everything.
And it shows. I mean, I love the way that you speak to the listener and the way that you even greet them at the top. And it's just so personable. It really is your thing. And I totally get finding your lane, finding what makes you go, finding what makes you feel comfortable. And that's your space. I totally get it.
And what the great thing, Grant, is it's a space for everybody, not my show, but listening to your voice. You have a beautiful radio voice. You have your own opinion on things. And the great thing about this medium is that the more, the merrier. I have my listeners, and I hope that grows. You have your listeners, and that grows. And, these people support us. These people are when I do talk to them, I talk to them exactly how I talk to a friend. I say such embarrassing things, such personal things, and they go there with me. I put my parents on the podcast. It's just the best place to be an open book.
Well, it's admirable to me as someone who does get a little jaded. It doesn't mean I don't appreciate the people that are listening. I just get a little kind of buried in work because I do this in my full-time job. So it is actually really refreshing to hear someone with that really is so committed to this and appreciates it so much. And yeah, I can relate. I'm right there with you. So yeah, we have that in common as well.
But yeah, if anybody listening wants to give it a shot, I welcome everybody. I welcome all ears.
Right.
And I mean, hey, I get jaded too. I get scared of if I'm doing the right thing by going this hard and really making this kind of part of my life's work. But at the end of the day, I get so excited thinking about who I talk to that day or who I'm about to talk to the next day.
That energy totally translates. It totally shows. So bravo.
Literally bravo.
Yeah, really. Let's talk briefly about the talk. I want to get into this and get your opinions. The ratings are low. This was never a hit show. Guest bookings on that show, there's no high-profile guests like ever. The rumor is that it's facing cancellation. I don't really care if it is, but Sharon Osbourne is out. We've talked about this now for a long time. I'm not getting into the details of that, but it's time for her to go. What can they do with this show? Does this have a place in pop culture, or is it done?
I mean, I don't think it's needed. I mean, we have so many shows exactly like this. It's easy to confuse the talk with the View or the Sip, there's so many variations of this show. And also, I think when you have somebody like Sharon stick there, she's known. She's like the female, who's the British guy that just got Piers Morgan. Yeah, it's like these people, they're outdated, and they have this cockiness about them now because they've been doing this so long. And at the end of the day, they got to realize you're just giving your personal opinions. It's like what we do with podcasting. Don't ever think that you're bigger than the pop culture that you talk about. At the end of the day, we all have opinions. At the end of the day, you could replace Sharon with anybody and potentially be just as good, if not better. So I think when you start believing your own hype, and I think of this with Housewives as well, it's a really dangerous territory, and you don't because everybody has an opinion. You don't have to go to school to have one. That's not a talent. What is a talent is trying to look at things fairly, unbiased, and to listen. That's a talent.
100%. And that's why I was screaming when I read this article. They're talking about this. A source claims, quote, Mrs. O is irreplaceable. And they go on to say that her talent doesn't exist anywhere else. Are you kidding me?
It exists everywhere else.
Everywhere else.
Just look at the podcasting genre. You can replace it with any Bravo podcaster, and it would be just as good. I mean, there are so many people that should get a shot. I've met so many people in the last year. Sharon has a name and she has a reputation, but that name and reputation will be her downfall as well. Yep. I mean, it's so dumb. You're not, you're not Britney Spears. You're not, John Grisham. You don't have a tactile talent to sell. You're just peddling opinions. And that is, and then to shut another lady down on a show where it's supposed to be about talking and listening in this culture, in this day and age, it's gross.
Especially a woman of color. I mean, come on. Read the room. What is wrong with you? Yeah.
And I thought that lady handled it so well by just kind of letting Sharon hang herself.
Yeah. Well, now the current panel is, and I don't really know who any of these people are. I do know Cheryl Underwood, obviously. Carrie and Anaba, okay, not exactly not exactly an A-lister. Amanda Klutz, I think her name is, and then Elaine Weltroth. I must be misreading this, but okay. I mean, this could be like a digital show. Like, it just doesn't scream network TV show to me. It just seems like this show is kind of on its last legs. It's nothing but bad press, bad ratings. And for a talk show that takes place in LA with the amount of talent that's there, like, it's just strange to me that there aren't more. Like, what happened to Marie Osmond? And what happened to Eve? Like, I don't understand what happens to these people. So it just seems like kind of like a discount talk show to me in certain ways, even the way it's produced. This is not just a knock on talent, but I would rather have it be like this than an hour of influencers. They'll try it, but it's not going to work.
Well, I mean, never underestimate the power of money. And they've set this train in motion. It's probably very cheap to produce. Sharon probably draws the largest salary. So, and Sharon's getting a $10 million payoff to get out of this. They're paying her contract out. So they're losing money there. But it's like Vanderpump Rules, people asking if it's going to come back. It's like, yeah, it's going to come back because it still makes money. It might not be good, but remember, nobody said TV has to be good. I mean, TV on the majority nowadays is good. but there's not a rule. The rule is to sell soap. The rule is to sell commercial time. And that show will still sell commercial time. So it really is, it could go either way. Either way, I don't care because I have my own opinions and I listen to opinions all day long.
Right.
I don't need to tune into another show to listen to other people's opinions, you know?
Especially on softball topics. I mean, there's so much going on in the world. You know, I remember like Julie Chen used to look into the camera. They would say stupid topics. Like, you know, like a child is acting up in church and she'll be like, would you yell at your child in public? And then they all have to have a discussion about parenting. I mean, that's not can't miss TV. That's nothing groundbreaking. And they've always tried it very lately. I remember Kathy Griffin used to say it was like The View, but less aggressive. I mean, that's the biggest show. That's the biggest problem, though. Why can't it be a little bit more aggressive? Now, my pick for who should go on the show, it would take a big investment, both financially and through PR, but I think Kathy Griffin should be on the show. I think that's the only way to press reset and to get the show some press, honestly.
I would love that. And by the way, I mean, right now they are riding a wave of press, you know, and it would be fascinating for them to really throw a Hail Mary and get somebody like Kathy Griffin, which is enough of a name. But you said you would love to see it more aggressive, and we did get to see it more aggressive, and it kind of was a failure. Like Sharon was way too aggressive and it was gross.
Yeah. Well, that was just ignorant. I mean, yeah, it was aggressive and ignorant. I mean, you can still debate a topic and seek out information and be a little combative, but like it doesn't need to get to the point where it was at all. But yes, I think Kathy would be good for this. I think she's a woman of a particular age. She lives in the LA area. She's been on the talk before. She's really good at that. She's fast, she's quick, and she needs a little bit of a redemption storyline right now in her own life. Trump's out. Let's see what happens with her in the next phase of her career. I don't think it will happen. You know, but for many different reasons that I won't get into, but I think if they were smart, they'd at least try it out for a year.
It is funny when you start to think of people's lives as like, you know, real people's lives and talking about them as storylines. Like I sometimes like to think of like, what's my storyline this year? Like what if I was on a reality show, what is my storyline? And I think that's very interesting to look at one's life like that.
I always did. I think it's because I grew up watching soap operas, so I would always follow people's storylines and their arcs. So that's how I think.
Like this year, I would kick myself off the cast. I'd be like, he's not making it back.
Yeah, that's how my brain works. Let's take a look now and go backwards into our old Hollywood talk segment.
It's Grant's Rants, Old Hollywood Talk.
We're going way back now with this last topic. Justin Timberlake, who I have continuously disliked, let the record show, for like 25 years. And can you believe I can't believe that we're talking about this 2004 Super Bowl performance.
If I had a time machine, I would go back and tell my young self not to buy any DVDs because of streaming. And I would go back and tell Justin, do not just leave it alone. You're not going to want this heat 25 years later. I feel like we talk about this every year. And it's like a campaign where we get more people to dislike Justin Timberlake over the years because more things become apparent. But at the same time, like, man, we have we can move on at a certain point.
I know. And I saw this ad, this Page 6 article, and I'm like, I agree with you. I'm like, who is this? This some stylist. His name is Wayne Scott Lucas. He's speaking out about this. And I'm like, but why? Again, like you said, 25 years ago, give it up. But apparently he was the stylist, and that was involved with the quote-unquote wardrobe malfunction. And the only reason he's penning this book, or it's at least the timing is convenient, is because of Justin's apology on Instagram. Remember with the Notes app and Janet in at the bottom. It just kind of covered that base. So this prompted him to speak out. Okay, dude, whatever. But I'm not, let the record show, I'm not defending Justin in any of this. But basically, he's blaming Justin, saying that Justin wanted to compete with the Britney Madonna Christina kiss, which was iconic. Remember the kiss? They cut away from Christina and Madonna to Justin Timberlake's reaction. Remember that?
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I go over this back and forth. Like, I'm not the biggest Justin Timberlake fan, but I also see the side of I mean, I hate that he really did let Janet take the fall for that, but in the actual like, I can see where his head was at. I can see where him really wanting to like really set himself apart and really show himself as a solo artist and to do anything by any means necessary, which meant having something talked about that huge. And you think about it now, and that would be barely a blip if somebody showed a nipple on screen. Nobody would give a crap about that now. But back then, it was this kind of reckless, thing, and families were watching the Super Bowl. But I understand what he thought he was doing. I thought, he thought he was being a pop star. He thought he was being dangerous. It's just that the fact that once he was dangerous and he got called out for it, he didn't take the blame.
Right. And there was the whole alleged, like the Janet Jackson was like banned from CBS or like Viacom or something alleged.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it was so poorly handled. There was a
fine by the FCC. The FCC fined it millions of dollars. I mean, it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And it just, being a student of pop culture and growing up with people like Madonna, Madonna had a sex book. Remember, Madonna had like that whole period of time where it was just, her, doing naked photos, and the book was called Sex. I mean, she was the first person to, the Like a Virgin and the Pepsi commercial with the Black Jesus. I mean, she was the first person that was really pushing buttons in a way in this pop culture landscape. And it is funny when somebody like Madonna kind of found a way to get away with it. But people like Justin, I think also because Madonna, that was really who she was. She walked the walk, she talked the talk. And I think Justin is more of a businessman that thought he was doing something that would be legendary.
Yeah, well, my biggest problem with him is I don't like men that sing in falsetto. So from the beginning, I'm out. But
wow, so you, wow.
Yeah, that eliminates a lot of them. But he's insisting that he wanted to do something bigger than the VMA performance and that he wanted a reveal. So then he should pay those FCC fines, in my opinion.
I mean,
it was his idea,
honestly,
apparently. Allegedly. I don't know. This is what the stylist is saying. Who knows? But the stylist did say that it was the most functioning wardrobe and it did what it was intended to do. So take that what you will. Take that with what you will.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. It's fun to, I mean, it's not fun, but it's interesting to remember that Super Bowl performance. And I mean, it shows you how quick the passage of time goes, but it's also fascinating because so many things has happened in between that. If you look at Janet Jackson's career and you look at Justin Timberlake's career, it's interesting to kind of see that full map of, the ups and downs of both of their careers, where Janet took an immediate hit. And I think Justin is taking a hit in the last couple of years,
Yeah, I mean, I wish this story would die. Personally, I'm not defending Justin. I have no.
Oh, it's so boring.
No interest
I mean, at this
in it.
point,
Yeah,
I mean, it's like a divorce that you keep going through. It's like you're divorced already. I mean, I think at this point, can we move on?
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show how. This is my final thought. I'll give it this. It just goes to show how barren this wasteland is of pop culture right now, in my point of view, where we're going back to this VMA performance of this two-way kiss, which was incredible with its time. I still get chills when I watch it, and I'm not being dramatic. I mean, this is like top 5 in my lifetime, like incredible moments. The wedding cake, Missy Elliott coming out, the balloons. I mean, I've watched it a billion times, and it still carries the same weight that it did that day. And it just goes to show the ripple effect of these events. It's not easy to pull off a stunt, as Justin can see from this story. But when done well, it carries for a long time. And Justin just did not do it well. But the women did, and it paid off.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's fascinating to look at it as in the sense of we have so much pop culture now that when they do these throwbacks, I almost think it's like showing the history of pop culture. Whereas, if you looked at when Justin originally did that performance, you're talking about performances, maybe 15 years earlier of people like Michael Jackson. And before that, though, it was very a minimal landscape. You had like the Beatles, you had Elvis, you had Little Richard, but now we have thousands of pop stars. Now, things are coming so quickly and so fast, and the media cycle is so 24/7 all the time that you if Justin Timberlake's performance happened tomorrow, it would be talked about in outrage for a week, and then we would drop it for the next thing.
Well, it's the same thing that happened at the Grammys. Everyone was in uproar about the Megan Thee Stallion performance on the bed with Cardi B.
It's done.
Yeah, and then now you have to go back to look up. You have to go on the third page to find an image of it when you Google them. I mean, it's like old news. I totally get it, but I just feel like pop culture, it's just not. It's in short supply. I know there's a lot of it, but it's in small doses. It's very niche. I miss the big moments that carry weight like this one for years. I'm just not seeing them anymore, and it's sad to me. Unless if you consider the Kardashians sit down with Auntie Cohen a big moment in pop culture.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's what we're left with. I mean, the Kardashians fill the pop culture landscape, but I really do. I mean, I will be curious 10 years from now what will be remembered from these last couple of years. What will stand out? What will prove to stand the test of time? Because right now, there's just so much where it makes everything not special instead of having these special, it was few and far between these amazing performances of yesteryear. And now they're coming all the time where they don't mean anything to us.
Exactly. I think the theme coming out of this podcast is that you and I have to meet in 10 years. We need to check in on the Housewives' children, the status of them, the status of influencer culture, and do a pop culture check-in. Where are we? What is left? And who's left to care about? That's what we need to do.
Just pray to God it's not at my funeral in 10 years. And you're like, I wanted to say a couple words about the pop culture landscape at Ryan's funeral. It is. I mean, I got to say that this part of talking about it, though, is exciting to me because you get to pull in the past and compare it with the now and possibly the future. And I think that is where true excitement in the discourse on this is, because we do now have a history of pop culture or even a history of these reality shows to pull from. So you have direct examples of how these things have grown and how these things have changed and what sticks out in your memory. We have a past now, so that's exciting to take into the future. But I think that's really where the true discourse is in comparison instead of really what's in the here and now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I want to talk about the story about Justin. As stupid as it is, it shows that.
No, it's pop culture. I mean, it brings in history. I think it's frustrating because we don't understand why it's still going. But the fact that you get to then talk about a certain time and a place and somebody that made a horrible decision like we do in our personal lives every day, but, for millions of people have to be involved in this,
Right. Well, it's almost destroyed someone's career. So, yeah.
A big career.
Yeah. Well, lots more to talk about. I'll have to have you back on, but thank you for coming on the podcast. Kids, if you haven't already, and I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, support his podcast. Check it out. Ryan, where can people find it?
So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. What I would ask, I always ask this, and and I hope Grant's all right with me saying this, is if when you do listen to these things, just hit 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. It's a free thing that you can do. It's a flick of your thumb. You don't have to pay anything because most of the time we are independent podcasters that are doing this for free. So that stuff, I know it might seem minute or silly, but it really does matter in the long run. So consider giving both of our podcasts 5 stars and subscribe and pick and choose. Go around, see if you like a guest, listen to it, see if you like it. And the Instagram is So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. And I post silly memes.
Excellent. Yes, I like the account too, by the way. Worth a follow. All right, Ryan, thanks for coming on the podcast. I love you guys for listening. And as always, we'll be back with more rants. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
This has been Grant's Rants. Follow Grant on Twitter and Instagram at It's Grant's Rants. Cover art created by Howie Ronay. Original theme music by Alexander Arntzen. The Grant Michael Collection.